Someone is lying to your face right now. Not a stranger, not an enemy, but someone close to you. And the most disturbing part, they genuinely believe they're the victim. They accuse you of the exact thing they are guilty of doing. Think about that for a second. The person who calls you selfish is the one taking everything. The person who accuses you of cheating is the one hiding messages. The person who says you never listen is the one who hasn't heard a word you've said in years. This is not a coincidence. This is projection. Projection is psychological warfare. It is the most powerful manipulation tool in existence because it turns your own empathy against you. Instead of questioning them, you start questioning yourself. Instead of seeing their guilt, you start feeling guilty. Sigmund Freud identified this mechanism over a century ago, and yet most people still fall for it every single day. Today, we are going to dissect this dark psychological weapon piece by piece, so that by the end of this video, no one will ever be able to use it against you again. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But what happens when someone weaponizes that irritation to control you? Imagine standing in front of a mirror, but instead of showing your reflection, it shows the reflection of the person standing behind you, and they convince you that what you see is actually your own face. That is projection in its purest form. A defense mechanism where the mind rejects its own flaws and pastes them onto someone else. Freud first described this in his work on defense mechanisms in the 1890s. He noticed that patients would consistently accuse others of feelings and behaviors that they themselves were exhibiting. A patient consumed by jealousy would accuse their partner of being jealous. A patient filled with rage would describe everyone around them as angry and hostile. The mind was exporting its own darkness to protect itself from the unbearable truth. And here is what makes projection so dangerous. It does not feel like a lie. The person projecting genuinely believes what they are saying. Their unconscious mind has already completed the transfer. The guilt, the shame, the unacceptable impulse, it has been moved from their internal world to yours. Denial becomes accusation, and you are left defending yourself against crimes you never committed. But this is only the beginning, because projection has different levels of severity, and some of them are truly sinister. Have you ever been in an argument where suddenly you are apologizing, and you cannot even remember what you were upset about in the first place? That is blame reversal, and it is projection's most common disguise. Reversal. Here is how it works. Someone does something hurtful. You confront them about it. But instead of acknowledging what they did, they flip the script entirely. You bring up that they forgot your birthday. They respond with, "You always make everything about yourself." You mention they raised their voice. They say you are so sensitive, you cannot handle a normal conversation. 1. You raise a valid concern. 2. They deflect with a counter-accusation. 3. You defend yourself against the new charge. 4. Your original concern disappears completely. Notice what happened. Your legitimate grievance was swallowed whole by their projection. Research by psychologist George Simon found that this pattern is not accidental. It is a deliberate, though often unconscious, strategy to maintain control. If you are always defending, you are never questioning. The person who controls the narrative controls the relationship. And speaking of control, there is a much darker version of projection that most people never recognize until it is far too late. This is where projection becomes genuinely disturbing. The loudest accusation often reveals the deepest guilt. Think about every scandal involving public figures who aggressively campaigned against the very behavior they were secretly engaging in. The anti-corruption politician caught embezzling, the morality crusader hiding an affair, the parent who screams about respect while treating their children with contempt. This pattern is so consistent that psychologists have given it a name: reaction formation combined with projection. The lady doth protest too much, methinks. Shakespeare understood this centuries before Freud. When someone is excessively vocal about condemning a behavior, it is often because that behavior lives inside them and they cannot bear to face it. A 2018 study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology confirmed this. Participants who scored highest on measures of dishonesty were significantly more likely to accuse others of lying. If this pattern is making you rethink some relationships in your life, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring the depths of your psyche with me. Because what I am about to explain next is the mechanism that makes projection almost impossible to detect. The mask hides what only careful observation reveals, and once you learn to see it, you cannot unsee it. Projection works because it hijacks your emotional system before your rational mind can respond. When someone accuses you of something, your body reacts first. Your heart rate increases, your palms sweat, Cortisol floods your bloodstream. Fight or flight activated. You are now in survival mode, and in survival mode, your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logical analysis, goes offline. This is neuroscience, not opinion. Researcher Daniel Goleman calls this an amygdala hijack. Your emotional brain takes over, and all you can think about is defending yourself from the accusation. You lose the ability to step back and ask the critical question. That critical question is simply this: wait, is this actually true about me, or is this true about the person saying it? The most dangerous projections are the ones that contain a grain of truth. That is their secret weapon. A skilled projector will weave just enough reality into their accusation to make you doubt yourself. They know you are not perfect, nobody is, so they aim at your insecurities. They do not accuse you of random things, they accuse you of the things you already worry about. But this tactic has roots that go much deeper than adult relationships. Projection does not begin in adulthood. It is learned in childhood, often from the very people who were supposed to protect us. Before you diagnose yourself with depression or low self-esteem, first make sure you are not surrounded by people who project onto you. Children are psychological sponges. When a parent says, "You make me so angry," they are projecting the responsibility for their emotional regulation onto a child who has no tools to challenge it. The child absorbs this projection as truth. I am the cause of anger. I am bad. I am the problem. This is not just theory. Attachment researcher John Bowlby demonstrated that children form their sense of self almost entirely from how their caregivers respond to them. If a parent consistently projects shame, inadequacy, or blame onto a child, that child grows up carrying someone else's emotional baggage as if it were their own. Their shame becomes your identity. And here is the devastating consequence. As adults, these same children often seek out relationships that replicate this dynamic. They are drawn to partners, friends, and bosses who project onto them because it feels familiar. The pattern repeats across generations until someone finally becomes aware enough to break it. Which brings us to one of projection's most toxic environments. Narcissistic projection is projection on steroids. In a standard projection, someone unconsciously transfers their feelings onto you. In narcissistic projection, the transfer is systematic, relentless, and designed to dismantle your sense of reality. Gaslighting. The narcissist who cheats will obsessively monitor your phone. The narcissist who lies will accuse you of being dishonest about everything. The narcissist who manipulates will tell everyone that you are the manipulator. They create an alternate reality where they are the victim and you are the villain. Psychologist Craig Malkin, author of Rethinking Narcissism, explains that narcissists use projection to maintain what he calls the narcissistic bubble. They cannot tolerate any crack in their self-image, so every flaw, every mistake, every dark impulse must be immediately relocated to someone else. 1. They project their insecurities as your flaws. 2. They project their guilt as your wrongdoing. 3. They project their chaos as your instability. And because they do this with absolute conviction, the people around them, friends, family, coworkers, often believe the projector, not the target. The narcissist does not project onto you at random. They project the exact parts of themselves they cannot face. But projection does not only live in intimate relationships. It thrives in another environment most people overlook entirely. The workplace is a breeding ground for projection, and almost no one talks about it. The micromanaging boss who accuses their team of not taking ownership. The colleague who takes credit for your ideas and then claims you never contribute. The executive who creates a toxic culture and then blames low morale on the employees. Control disguised as leadership. A study by the Workplace Bullying Institute found that 70% of workplace bullies use projection as their primary tool. They frame their aggression as your poor performance. They frame their insecurity as your incompetence. They frame their need for control as your inability to work independently. The most dangerous projectors in the workplace hold positions of power. Because when someone above you in the hierarchy projects onto you, there is an added layer: authority bias. We are neurologically wired to give more credibility to people in positions of power. So when your boss says you have an attitude problem, your brain is more likely to accept it as truth than if a peer said the same thing. But this brings us to the most uncomfortable question of all, one that most people refuse to ask themselves. Here is the part nobody wants to hear. You project too. Every single person does. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow describes the parts of ourselves that we have rejected, repressed, and buried in the unconscious. And when we encounter those qualities in someone else, we react with disproportionate intensity. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Ask yourself honestly, is there someone in your life who irritates you beyond what seems reasonable? Someone whose behavior triggers a reaction in you that feels too strong for the situation. That reaction is often your shadow being reflected back at you. This does not mean you are the same as the narcissist projecting onto you. There is a profound difference between unconscious projection that everyone experiences and the weaponized projection used by manipulators. But recognizing your own projections is essential. Self-awareness kills projection. Jung argued that the path to individuation, becoming a whole and integrated person, requires us to face our shadow directly, not to destroy it, not to suppress it, but to acknowledge it, understand it, and integrate it into our conscious awareness. The person who knows their shadow cannot be controlled by someone else's projection. And that is exactly where our next point becomes critical. Now that you understand how projection works, here is how you defend against it. The first and most powerful technique is what therapists call the pause. Pause. When someone accuses you of something and your body floods with the urge to defend yourself, stop. Do not react. Do not explain. Do not justify. Instead, ask yourself one question. Is this true about me, or is this true about the person saying it? That 5-second pause breaks the amygdala hijack and brings your prefrontal cortex back online. 1. Pause before reacting to any accusation. 2. Ask whose emotion is this really? 3. Look for the confession hidden in their accusation. 4. Refuse to accept responsibility for their feelings. 5. Set boundaries without explaining yourself. The second technique is what I call the confession detector. Every projection is a disguised confession. When someone accuses you of something, flip it around. If this were true about them, would it explain their behavior? 9 times out of 10, the answer is yes. Their accusation is their autobiography written in your name. The third technique is the most difficult but the most liberating. You must stop trying to prove your innocence. Projectors feed on your need to be understood. The moment you stop defending and start observing, their power evaporates. But there is one final piece to this puzzle. The ultimate defense against projection is radical self-knowledge. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. When you truly know yourself, your strengths, your flaws, your shadow, projection loses its grip. You can hear an accusation and think, that is interesting, but it is not mine to carry. You can watch someone blame you for their behavior and recognize the transfer happening in real time. Awareness destroys manipulation. This is not about becoming cold or untouchable. It is about developing what psychologist Daniel Siegel calls mindsight, the ability to observe your own mental processes with clarity. When you have mindsight, you can tell the difference between your genuine feelings and the feelings someone has projected onto you. You stop carrying emotional luggage that was never yours to begin with. Think about how much energy you have spent defending yourself against accusations that were actually confessions. Think about the relationships where you were convinced you were the problem, when the evidence now clearly shows you were the target. Every moment spent proving your innocence was a moment stolen from your growth. You cannot get that time back, but you can make sure no one steals another second of it. From this moment forward, when someone points a finger at you, remember this. 3 fingers are always pointing back at them. Projection is the manipulator's most powerful weapon precisely because it is invisible. It uses your own empathy, your desire to be fair, your willingness to self-examine against you. But now you can see it. Now you understand the mechanism. Knowledge is your armor. Every time someone accuses you of what they are doing, that is not an attack. It is a confession. Every time someone makes you feel guilty for their behavior, that is not truth. It is a transfer. Every time you find yourself defending against something that does not feel like you, stop, breathe, and ask the question that changes everything. Whose feeling is this, really? Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. You are not responsible for healing the people who project onto you. You are not responsible for carrying their shame, their guilt, or their unresolved pain. Your only responsibility is to know yourself deeply enough that no one else can define you. If you made it this far, comment projection exposed if you recognized this pattern in your own life. Welcome to the Psyche Project.